going on? I've never really been too far off base with the way I think either. Sure, I have problems with audio also, but overcome problem with headphones. Yeah, if you don't have headphones, folks, you might want to get headphones. Might be easier to listen to the shows live with headphones. Alright. Yeah, because I had trouble getting on. I don't know if you talked about your promised Montauk. Montauk was supposed to be open for reptilian down the humans kill them and so on. Long on. Alright. As far as Montauk goes, I didn't want to get into anything that's already been circled around the internet a million times about Montauk. Montauk is a hidden underground base in Long Island, New York. And they've been doing... This Montauk has supposedly been closed for years. You know, as soon as we found out about it, or other people found out about it, the government declared it was closed and off limits, and it was just a closed base. Nobody was going there, and blah, blah, blah. But they always say that, and then they just reopen it for the black projects. And the black projects, people take over it. From my understanding of Montauk, it's a reptilian base. It's one of these joint reptilian military bases, and there is a Stargate in Montauk. And they use their own children, these people involved with the military out there, will use their own children to become lab rat tests, to go into these tunnels that they open up with their Stargates. And I say this because I listened to the testimony of an adult who had gone through this as a child. Her father had worked at Montauk, and as a child she was forced to go down these tunnels. And she said the other people with her were the children of the other people in the military there. And so they would use their own children as bait, as lab rats. And they'd go down these tunnels, and I remember her saying how horrid these tunnels were, because these beings, straight from hell, these demonic-looking beings, would come after them and try to kill them. And so at that point, they would have to turn around and try to run as fast as they could back up the tunnels, back to the gate, the entrance, so they could get away from these demonic beings that were coming up through the tunnels after them. And this caused a lot of psychological problems on these kids that had to go through that. And so I've also heard of women that have been around Montauk being abducted, taken to this base and raped by reptilians, these lizard beings. And then they would be taken out and put back, taken back to where they were taken from by military soldiers. And so they work together on this. It's a joint base, joint military reptilian base. And that's basically the reason they've kept it open, because there's very few locations of these Stargates around the world. They have the one at Montauk. I believe that there's one underneath the Mormon temple, some kind of a gate under the Mormon temple in Salt Lake, Utah. There's one at Pine Gap in Australia, and there's one in Iraq. And a lot of people believing that they put up this 104-acre embassy because they think they know where this location is of this Stargate that's out there. And so they're they've already claimed the land and built on it so they can try to get access to this hidden Stargate that's in Iraq. And I think their whole point of it is I think they think if they get a hold of the Stargate, that they can keep this Maitreya from arriving on Earth. I don't know why they think that. I'm not sure that they do. That's just one of my thoughts on looking at the whole situation, because you can look up in the sky and Maitreya is just floating on a UFO waiting his time to come down here. He's not even in the abyss. He's in aerospace. And so if you notice the difference between abyss and aerospace is our first heaven here. And the abyss out past the planets and the stars and the constellations. And so he's basically just right here in our own aerospace, biding his time, waiting to arrive. And so I don't think closing down a Stargate, folks, is going to stop Maitreya. And I'm probably just talking, the only people that would understand what I'm talking about is probably some of these Air Force bases that listen into my shows, because closing down a Stargate's not going to stop them. Another thing is these portals that this Serpent Seed line has had a lot of people doing via the New Age, going through and opening up these grid points throughout the United States, throughout the country. When orgone, folks, is a specific energy, and it can be used to create different types of energy. The orgone I create, when I asked the Lord specifically, I wanted a weapon, some way, that we could use to defend against ELF attacks, against RM, remote neural monitoring attacks, to defend against the weapons of the New World Order, to defend against all these mind control towers. And he led me to a specific way of making orgone. And I've never varied from this specific route, this way that he has told me to make orgone, because it has proven to be a very strong weapon against exactly what we needed it for, to stop New World Order attacks, to stop ELF, to stop HARP, to stop chemtrails. But there's other groups that will take this idea of orgone energy, this concept, not exactly a concept, it's just an energy that's existed, it's ancient energy, it's always existed, and try to use it for different things. And so there are groups that will change the makeup and use of this orgone, the way they make it, and instead of fighting evil, they invite evil. And so they use it to try to open up portals for demonic entities to come through. And so I'm just getting ready to go on a road trip to go across the country and prepare areas for the Lord's people, and so that when they flee to the deserts and in different states and different parts of the country, that they'll be safe from the weapons of the New World Order, and also to free captives that have been held by demonic entities in the New World Order. And so it's an ongoing war. And at the same time, Satan has his people out there, the Don Croft crowd, opening up portals for them so that they have access to the earth. And so it's just a constant war. It's just a constant war, folks. If you haven't gotten into the orgone war yet, you can look at my website at orgoneblasters.com. And I have directions down there on how you can make it, how the Lord led us to make it, and specific directions for you there. Email from a reader. Federal government has relocated most of its agencies to Colorado in a mile-high elevation. This is Washington, D.C., suspiciously vulnerable and wide open for a sacrificial attack. Yep. The only loss would be 500,000 black welfare recipients anyway. What would they gain as martial law, along with the physical and psychological destruction of our familiar national monuments and symbols? You know what? They could nuke to heck that huge penis out there. I wouldn't mind a bit. Colorado would make a more centralized capital in North American Union. Yeah, they have plans. They've always had plans for Denver to become the capital of the New World Order. And somehow Atlanta becomes the eastern capital, and Denver becomes the western capital. And so you really have to look at a map